Hello and welcome to another episode of On the Edge Sports Podcast, and this again is our Sligo Club Championship special. It's round 3 review and keeping you up to date on what's happened the last weekend. Before we get into it, Darren, here's the current odds in the Sligo Senior Club Championship. Shamrock Hales 5-2, Drumcliff Ross's Point 5-2, Calera Strandhill 3-1, Soar St Mary's, and then it's Eastern Harps 13-2, Malosh Gales 7-1.
Okay.
Where do you call it from there? You know, that tells you everything you need to know about this championship, that it is as close as you can get.
Yeah, it's wide open for, I suppose, the teams that are there at the top of the betting. I think St Mary's were favourites before last weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
Round of games.
Yep.
And then Shamrock Hales in, obviously, the current champs.
Yeah,
they come back
seem to
into
flex
it.
their muscle a bit. And, like, you know, what do you think has changed there?
Oh,
Was it players back? Or just you seen that game now? I didn't get to see that myself.
There's probably a bit of everything, to be honest. There was probably everybody was questioning them over the first 2 games because they'd only 2 draws got.
2 draws, yeah.
But as we said, it was like last weekend's game was about winning, and they turned on the style against St Mary's and got their 2 points. So they go into the favourites now in the bookies' favour. Like, you know.
Yeah. It was very hard to call. I'll quickly read out the results for anyone that hasn't caught up with them. So in Group 1, Mary's 110, Shamrock Hales 117, and Eastern Harps had a massive win, 426 over Tubbercurry 1-8, which is again a surprise to me. We'll come back to it in a second. The Group 2 results, Calera 418, they got back to winning ways. Killarney Mullabrina 15 points, Malosh Gales 14 points, Drumcliff Ross's Point 319. So look, we'll start at that game actually to go into a bit more depth, because we were both commenting on that ourselves on Ocean FM. And again, like me and you were talking last week, I said, God, I can see a few draws this weekend, and I thought that one was kind of maybe primed for a draw.
Yeah.
But Drumcliff, I mean, it was a huge win, but the first 2 or 3 minutes, they could have had another 2 or 3 goals. Hit the post twice, missed a penalty, then not in the first 2 minutes, but a little later on.
Yeah, look, it was
very impressive.
It was probably everybody was thinking it coming up to the game that it was going to be a tight affair, local derby. We had mentioned it last week, and I'm sure they'd been talking about it in their own relevant camps as well. But nearly from the get go, it was Drumcliff just boom went at it.
Oh yeah,
and I don't think Malosh had any answer now. In Malosh's favour, like we would say that they're obviously missing a couple of their county players. So Luke Castley didn't start.
Yeah.
And Luke Towie is missing. So arguably, you know, they're 2 best players. And then we mentioned that they're missing some guys for long-term injuries, Jack David and Carl Hearn and these guys that are out.
Alan McLaughlin came in. And in fairness, when Luke Castley came in, he kind of shored up a little bit at the back. And then Alan McLaughlin got, was it maybe 3 points, I think? I forgot
he
off the top of my head. So like, you know what I mean? He started to so maybe.
Yeah, but it was Drumcliff have an embarrassment of riches at the moment.
Yeah.
Like they're that a couple of changes before the start themselves to their starting team. Adam Ryan came in. We'll speak about him in more detail after a while, but he came in and he picked up Adam McLaughlin from the start. And I've watched him over the last few years. He's a guy from Port Arlington in County Laois who's been playing for Drumcliff for the last few years, and he's a right good footballer, but I never put him down as a man marker. And between the Drumcliff management and whatever Aidan McBarton came up with, but they decided to put him man marking Adam McLaughlin. From the get-go, you could see it that he was picking him up, and the tactics was to put Adam McLaughlin going the opposite way. Don't let him get the ball and control it from the forward press and make him chase you. And Adam Ryan ended up kicking 4 points. I think 3 in the first half and 1 in the second half. But like he was off the shoulder all the time. He was just real hard running. So it was kind of a tactic that they had. You pick up this guy, but you make him mark you.
Well, it definitely worked. As I said, I was talking to him after the match. In fairness, he gave us his time to chat, and so did Adrian McFarlane. But I said at one stage you were down the full back, like he really was everywhere.
Yeah, he
was.
And
then, as you said, to go and score on top of that, like again, my first time watching him playing, like with
Drumcliff, they seem to. They got their tactics right, so they went with 2 giants in the full forward line with Cian Lally,
joy to watch,
you know, and Paul O'Brien, and they just let the ball in. Now Ballymode is a smaller pitch than some of the pitches around the county, and from everywhere they let the ball in first time without thinking. And Malosh were all at sea in the full back line, and they were winning breaks. They were winning their own breaks, as you mentioned there. Like they hit the crossbar twice, which could have been 2 goals in the first few minutes. Then they got. Cian Lally got taken down for a penalty chance, which was missed by James Donlan, rebounded to him. Good save by John Gibson for the penalty, who gets up and saves the rebound as well. So he deserves a bit of credit for that. And then they got their couple of goals there as well. Then, you know, like, and they really flex their muscles. Like they haven't, like, as I said, like their panel seems to be very, very strong. Like
the 36 Toggin.
But they had subs coming in that were making a real impact. Yeah. So when you're doing that, the likes of Cian Oates came on, he got a point with his first touch. Ross Chambers came on, got a point with his first touch. You know, these guys are making an impact. And then you have Niall Cleary, who was down to start it in Tog on the night. And you had guys like Michael Carroll, who has been shooting the lights out over the last couple of weeks, you know. Yeah. And he came up with another few scores the other night. Now, we mentioned that Cian Lally was kept a little bit quieter in the second half because Luke Castley went on him. Obviously, you know, that Luke Castley will... You know, he'd probably inter-county defender.
Yeah, neutralise a lot of players.
But I don't think Cian Lally had to do an awful lot in the second half either because the game was over for a long way out.
I think was it 10 up or 8 up at halftime? 10 up. And I mean, against Calera, they did lose that lead, but they still won the game, the 2 games. But like this time, they just kept them at arm's length. They drove
on. They didn't rest on their laurels. And it was interesting. I think we mentioned in commentary, it was 7-5 to Drumcliff, and Malash had a 45, and it was ideal conditions for kicking football, like, you know. And Aaron Lang decided to go short and got caught for being too short. Ball went down the field. Malash actually won the ball back, and it ended up with Paul Flynn kicking it wide. So, like, they actually had 2 chances to bring it back to the minimum, to bring it back to 7-6. After that, Drumcliff scores 2-3 or 2-4 in the next 5 minutes. And that is like such a change, like such a swing. Momentum, like we're talking about momentum swings in games. That was a huge momentum swing. Like, to go straight down the field, and instead of being 1 point down, then you're 4 down. You lose the next kick out, you're 5 down, and then another goal goes in.
They're just relentless. And the two wing backs, Keane McBride and Stephen Regan.
Yeah.
I was, again, like, you know, this is new to me, seeing a lot of these players, and, you know, it's just certain players stand out. They were everywhere on the pitch, up and down, and they were always in the right place, it seemed to be. But they seem to be the real connector between backs and forwards.
They've got the license to go. So obviously, you know, whether the wing backs and wing forwards, there's not a huge amount of difference in them in the modern game now. So they've got the license. Just go all over the field, handle as much ball as you can, and, you know, there's no need to be taking pop shots yourself. You know, get it to the right man in the right position. And again, a little bit of credit has to go to Donnacha O'Brien, the keeper for Drumcliff, Ross's point, because Papa Dirks, one of the best keepers in Gaelic football over the last number of years, like, he has stepped aside this year. He was in goals with Drumcliff over the last number of years. He stepped aside, and Donnacha's come in and done, I've watched him over the last few games, and he's done a right good job. And, like, there was one stage of the second half, he came out to take a free, and he put it on the deck, which you don't really see in football nowadays. He put it on the deck and he drove it 60 yards down the field, which was fielded by Eamon O'Mahony, who in turn gave it straight into the full forward line. Right, man off the shoulder, and it's a goal.
Lovely move.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
again, in both teams, in fairness, for a lot of the game, it was Route 1. Yeah. And it was lovely to watch.
It was
everything you want the new rules to be.
It was. And Laois Gaels have a lot of soul searching to do after, you know, you're losing to your rivals by that amount. You know, there's a lot of questions to be asked, and whether they come up with the answers or not, time's going to tell.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, Drumcliff are now, they're through to the semi-finals, and just in the other game, Colera-Strandhill in that group, Colera-Strandhill 4-18, Colani 15. Now, I mean, I presume most people expected Colera to win that. They would have been the favourites, but was it that big a win expected? Yeah,
I watched the game, and I suppose Colera needed the win. They really did, to get back in the horse after losing their opening game, because they had the week off then, and they had Fola, the new guy playing inside. Long-winded second name, but he was a real handful from the get-go. Like, he got a goal in the first couple of minutes. He ended up kicking 3-3.
3-3, yeah.
He could have scored 5 or 6 goals himself.
Wow.
Do you know? And they just couldn't mark him. I think he ended up with 3 or 4 different guys trying to mark him.
Because I watched him against Drumcliff in the first game. Wasn't sticking from that day, you know what I mean? And you could see he's obviously playing that big full forward kind of role. Yeah. But obviously it clicked the other day.
Yeah, like
he's forward.
Definitely, and I'd say he is a confidence player, and he got from the get-go, he scored the goal, so it gives him huge confidence. But the Colera boys were giving him in the ball, and the game was out in Budnaden there, and I suppose the first night you're touching on it there, when he was against Drumcliff, Eamon Keane marked him, and just touch back to the Drumcliff game for a second. He had a massive game again on Saturday. I just think he's a phenomenal footballer. Yeah. But he's going to go into the full back role now at the moment, and I wouldn't have put him down for a full back because he played wing back for the Sligo under-20s all year, but he picked Fola up in the first game, and he didn't, like, Fola caused him a small bit of hassle, but he didn't give him any space, but the Mullabrina boys couldn't handle him on Sunday afternoon in Budnaden. But Colera got back on the horse, and again, they've been in county finals over the last few years for a reason. Okay, they have.
You don't just lose it overnight.
Definitely
any sign
not.
of any of the injured players there coming back?
Well, Sean Murphy played. So
okay.
So he was back in the fold, which was good to see him back. And he's a good cog in the defence for Collares Strandhill. And Kiwi Keelan Cawley started, who didn't start the first night. He came on at half time against Drumcliff Ross's Point. But
of course, this is only Collares' second game as well.
Yeah, so like he knits an awful lot of stuff together there. But as the question asked, the other Murph, the main man, no, there was no sign. He wasn't talked out at the weekend.
Okay.
So
that group was looking tasty. Like as we said, okay, Drumcliff are through. So Drumcliff play Killarney this weekend. So like it's a kind of a funny one for Drumcliff. You would assume they're going to rotate a bit on that.
They definitely will, especially going out to Enniscrone from Drumcliff out to Enniscrone. I don't know where they're going. I'm not sure if they're going Friday or not, but yeah, it's a long way out.
Yeah.
But Aidan McPartlin has the luxury now of getting some of the guys that didn't start. I'm sure that he's going to be resting guys again, no more than what they've done against Eastkey in their second game in the group. They have the luxury of doing that because. But then again, you want to be keeping your shape and keeping your system, and you're not going to deviate away from it when it's working for you. And there's other guys that are going to be knocking on the door saying, if I can get in against Killarney Mullerbreen on Saturday evening and put my best foot forward and put myself in the shop window. And
that's going to be the last chance. And it's like from last weekend gone by to the semis, it's 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So you're probably going, God, we don't get rusty either. Like
definitely.
We've seen what Mayo, like they came in.
Yeah, of course. And it's Killarney Mullerbreen, like, to their credit, they kept at it against Colara on Sunday. And just after half-time, they had 4 wides in a row. And, they probably went for a couple of 2-pointers that they didn't really need, but they probably thought that we needed to get back into the game because they weren't that far behind. I know that Colara just got a goal just before half-time. And they were probably thinking, right, we have to kick a couple of 2s here. And they probably didn't. They probably should have worked it in a little bit. And them wides just sucked the life out of you. And you could,
the underdog as well. And
but you could see it from the players on the pitch that they're like, oh, it's gone wide again. And it's just bringing you back down. And then, whereas if a couple of them goes over, then it's a different ball game. And Colara then have to come out and they have to come out of their shape. Whereas Colara could just sit in their shape the last day and then hit them when they won the ball back, they got their turnovers and they hit them on the attack and they got a penalty later on. They got another goal then from another game. And look at it's a funny game on Saturday even because like Drumcliff Ross's Point don't need to win it. But I guarantee you they don't want to lose it either.
No, they don't want us to have a banana skin. And they, as you said, there's going to be lads that are going, no, this is my last chance to show the boss what's happening.
Then on the flip side of that, then on Sunday afternoon, then in Kent Park, you have Colara Strandhill playing Eastkey. Yeah. And again, look at I talked to one or two of the Eastkey lads. I was at an underage match out there last Friday evening, and they are decimated with injuries, and they have a long list of injuries, but they're coming back slowly but surely, and they're getting back. Now, obviously, Sunday will probably come too soon for a lot of them, but it's going to be a game that Colara Strandhill probably are going to flex their muscles again and get across the line. And
I'm just going on results. You'd imagine.
Yeah, of course, and it could be just another long day at the office for Eastkey. But I'm pretty sure at this stage that Eastkey are just looking at the relegation battle and making that a little mini championship for themselves. If you understand what I'm saying, and that's no disrespect to them. It's just that where they are at the moment because they're working off a small panel. When you have a small panel and players injured, it's very tough. Yeah,
and of course, Malosh have a weekend off this weekend, so. Yeah, it's kind of you can't wait for that last round. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's where the real tension comes into that group.
It's Malosh Gales versus Colara Strandhill in the last game.
Yeah,
and if Drumcliff Ross's Point were to win this weekend, then it goes to Malosh and Colara to see who finishes second and third, which is going to have a big bearing.
Just to make sure I'm not right or wrong, second plays third in the other group.
Correct.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're kind of looking at the other group too, going,
yeah, definitely.
And at the moment, we'll go to group 1. We'll just quickly go through that. We said,
go ahead. Yeah.
Shamrock Gales 117, Mary's 110. Again, you watched this all, and near the end, I did tune in to the last few minutes, and it just didn't seem that Mary could just get it to click, and Shamrock Gales were able to just kind of nearly keep them a bit at arm's length. Would that be a good?
Yeah, pretty much so. Like Shamrock Gales are well ahead in the first half, and St Mary's got a goal and a point just before half time. Real poxy enough goal, long ball into the box, something similar to what Shamrock Gales got against Tourlestrane the week previous in Kent Park. It was a dangerous ball into the box, high ball in, nobody dealt with it, ball breaks, and Robert Kelly Lynch gets a hand to it and knocks it into the corner, which brings St Mary's back into it. They get a point just before half time, and then all of a sudden they're only 4 down at half time. Second half coming out, then I was thinking that maybe they're going to kick on here, St Mary's. That's after giving them a bit of life, but no, Shamrock Gales, as you mentioned, kept them at arm's length. It was a kind of a professional performance from the current champs, if you know what I mean. So I had said mentioned on our show last week that they needed to get a couple of players back in just to fire them up in the forward line especially, and the start of Shane Degnan, who is an inter-county forward, who is always going to make your team better no matter what team he's playing on.
In the end,
he got 1-2 I think he got on the night, and Niall Kenny started as well, who had come on against Tourlestrane and was a little live wire inside, so you had them two guys inside, which gives huge pace in the inside forward line, which means that they can kick the ball a little more direct. Then fellas coming on the loop, it brings the pace and the intensity up to it. Plus Shamrock Gales brought huge fight, which was probably missing a little bit in their first two games, whether it may be a little bit of a hangover from last year's championship or league or whatever it may be. And again, we mentioned the whole Jeopardy situation, they probably needed that win big time on Saturday night, whereas St. Mary's had 2 from 2. Okay, so and it's one of these games that, from the outside looking in, it looks that St. Mary's probably don't know their best 15 at the moment.
Okay. And they're waiting on anyone really to come back.
Well, Ronan Island is who is a huge player, but based on Saturday night, they need him back. Yeah. And they need him on that team, and it's one of these things that, they're probably, I would say, no more than Molash Gales in Group 2. I would say that St. Mary's are lucky that they're not playing this weekend coming, that they have a break and they can iron out a few creases.
Because the talent is there.
The talent is there, the players are there, but they just don't seem to be able to, for whatever reason, knit it together. And it just looked a little bit all over the place on Saturday even. Nothing really seemed to click for them. Again, they'll have a say in the championship, don't get me wrong. Right, and they have an abundance of players, but Shamrock Gales flex their muscles no more than Drumcliff, Ross's Point. And again, you're looking at, you're going to go through the fixtures here for the weekend, but in the other results in the group, Eastern Harps had a huge win over Tubbercurry.
So if we're looking at Mary's, how much was it? 4 points between them and Tubbercurry?
Yes.
And Mary's and Tourlestrane was only 2 or 4 points.
No, I think it was 4 as well. Yeah.
So I mean, if you're trying to get, like I said, the horse race analogy.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going, well, Eastern Harps, they hammered Tubbercurry, and whereas Mary's kind of were struggling. I was at that game, it was a real tit for tat.
Yeah.
So if you're trying, it's an interesting group there to try and fathom who's
where.
We
touched on it last week. Eastern Harps had the break in between their Shamrock Gales game and their Tubbercurry game. So that break, when you're a young up and coming team with a new manager, and you're not playing back to back straight up, right? Okay. So you get your break and you get a good week's training in yourself, and Tubbercurry on the flip side of that were straight out the following week after putting up a huge effort against St. Mary's the week before. Lost Eddie McGuinness before the game. He didn't play, arguably their best player. They had a man sent off early in the game. They had Aaron Perry, who you were very impressed with the first evening. He went off injured. Okay. And Conor McDonough, the guy that kicked 2 2-pointers against St. Mary's, he also went off injured. So
that really tells the story. In fairness,
that, and I had said that if Tubbercurry were to compete against Eastern Harps 2 weeks in a row, they needed everybody firing, and we didn't know if it was the case. And if you're taking out 3 or 4 players out of that, it brings you right back to the pack. And Eastern Harps then are just flying at the moment in relation to scoring. They had a huge spread of scores the last evening.
How was our full forward doing?
Mad, he ended up at 2-1. Okay, and the information I got was that he should have had 4-10. So I don't know. To work on. Definitely. Aaron Healy in the corner forward kicked 9 points, and then they had a spread of scores throughout. Lots of guys chipped in with it, and there was a guy that I had mentioned, Alex Lilly, that I think he's a right good footballer, up and coming footballer. Now, unfortunately, I heard over the weekend that he has done his cruciate ligament in his knee. So wishing him best wishes and hope he comes back better than ever. But, the likes of missing them players and Caelan Hunt, who broke his foot in the league final, he's another couple of weeks away. But Eastern Harps be delighted where they are at the moment. That's a huge win.
We put up a thing on Instagram and someone had messaged in Eastern Harps, the dark horses.
Perhaps they are. But for a young team, putting up a score like that, doesn't matter who it's against. That gives you huge confidence. So then, if you're looking at the fixtures, you're going to go through the fixtures here.
Fixtures in Group 1 this weekend coming is Tubbercurry versus Shamrock Gales in Father Kevin Breheny Park. That's 7:30 on Saturday evening. And then Sunday, Eastern Harps versus Tourlestrane out in Bunanadden. 5 o'clock, that one. So again, the first one, Tubbercurry and Shamrock Gales. Now again, just going on last weekend, if you're going into bookies, you're probably going, well, Shamrock Gales maybe now, are they off and running,
Yeah, I would say they are. And I would say based on the Tubbercurry injuries, because the likes of them injuries, and
was it a straight red?
I'm not 100% on that, but even if it is, and if Aaron Perry is injured or you're missing, you don't know if they picked up a couple of injuries in the Eastern Harps game as well. and Shamrock Gales just seem to be upping it game by game. So I think it could be, a long day at the office for Tubber on Saturday night.
They've had no break, am I right in saying that?
Tubber Curry did 3 in a row.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So
and it's tough to do that with a small panel. It really is. Like one of our guys is looking after the top scorer, Brian Kern, is out for the season. I know he's the elder statesman, but he's a huge player for Tubber Curry.
I've seen him in action the Masters a couple of years ago.
I tell you what, so unfortunately he's out for the season as well. So, and then in the other fixture, then Eastern Harps and Tour de Strand. So from Eastern Harps going on the high of beating Tubber Curry by that figure and drawn with the county champs in their first day out, they face Tour de Strand now on Sunday, and it's a potential banana skin. It is, right? There's no point saying it's not, because Tour de Strand got a good result against Shamrock Gales, drawn with them, okay?
And they had Mary's.
They had a decent outing against Mary's, scoring 3-12 against St. Mary's in the first game, and they're after having a week's break now. Okay, so that week's break, if they get a couple of guys back from injury, if they improve another little bit on it. So it'll be interesting just to see. Now, I would expect Eastern Harps to come through that based on what they're doing at the moment and putting up big scores and their pace and power. It just seems to be something that's working for them, and they're very, very lively. And then just Tour de Strand, is it going to be a step too far for them? And we said they have a small bit of pride in themselves. They really do. And they weren't county champs 7 in a row for no reason.
Well, the muscle memory's in there. Yeah, you'd imagine.
And you have a couple of guys that are there, and the guy that got player of the week last week for us, Carl Henry, is going to be a handful there for any full back line.
See him in the flesh. I'll be commentating the live stream on Sligo GAA TV.ie. Unfortunately, Darren has left me for this weekend, so I'm not sure who
you'll find an able replacement.
Week, but maybe we'll do a FaceTime. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing Eastern Harps again, and then Tour de Strand for the first time. But
and definitely, but it's the results this weekend in that group are going to go a long way, because Eastern Harps, to get the win, to go on 5 points. Okay, Shamrock Gales, I would expect them to get the win to go up onto 6, and then it comes down to Eastern Harps and St. Mary's. No more than Malash Gales against Culera in the last game in the group, to see who finishes second and third.
That last weekend.
Yeah, because and that they're the games that you want, because no disrespect to the likes of Easky or to the likes of Tubber or these guys, right? Them games, they're probably a little bit, they're not down the line far enough to be competing with the bigger teams and the bigger panels, when you get into them last group games and it's the second and third. So the likes of Eastern Harps to be like, okay, let's just get the win against Tour de Strand here by 1 point. They'll take it before the game, I guarantee you that. Yeah. And let's put ourselves into a shootout with St. Mary's in the last group game, and let's see where we're at. Because they had a ding-dong battle in the league final that went to extra time, right, and there was only a kick of the ball or a little bit more in it at the end of extra time. So there's lots of football to be played yet.
It's bubbling up nicely. I mean, if the groups ended today, Culera would be playing Shamrock Gales. They wouldn't fancy that, I'd say. And Malash would be playing Eastern Harps. So just Malash's last result, they might be like, "Oof, Eastern Harps are flying," and we're just, So it'll be interesting to see what it all finishes up there. So look, that's the seniors. And as I said, the live stream games this weekend are Colani Mullinabrina versus Drumcliff. That's on Saturday evening at 7:30. And as I said, I'll be commentating on Sunday at 5 o'clock in Bunnaden, Eastern Harps versus Tour de Strand. And they're on Sligo GAA TV.ie. You can sign up there, and even if you go to the game, sure, sign up anyways and watch it back, and you can rate my commentary then. So we'll quickly go through the intermediate championship here. I'll just call out the results. In Group 1, Ballymote Ron Towers 2-11, 1-8 to Giva, sorry Darren. Clunacool 14, Curry 5-25. And that leaves that group: Curry on 6, Castleconnor, Giva and Ballymote all on 2, and Clunacool on 0. And in Group 2, we'll just give us a quick overview. I'm sure you were obviously at the Giva game anyways. You look at, from all I'm hearing, Ballymote would be kind of one of the more fancy teams in that championship.
Again, it was Ballymote probably had the luxury of bringing on fresh legs towards the end of the game. They got a goal late on. With 5 minutes to go, there was only 3 points in it, and it was a fortuitous goal just after half time. For Ballymote that had given them that little 3-point cushion. It was level at half time. There was nothing in the game. There really wasn't. But Give just don't have the panel. They didn't have fresh legs to come in. They brought on one sub who ended up getting sent off, and then you're with 14 men for the rest of the game, and Ballymote were 4 or 5 up, and Give have to chase the game, and then they get hit with a sucker punch of a goal late on. And Ballymote were decent. I will give them their dues. They were decent, and they have some good players all over the field. Like they've the three Lavins playing there in the middle third, like, right good players. And then they have a couple of very good forwards, and they have a couple of very, very strong, tenacious defenders that are mopping up ball around the full back line there. There was, and then they have a very good keeper in Cian Kilcoyne, who, he was on the county panel there, and he played underage with Sligo, and very good kick out, very sharp kick out. So again, look at Ballymote were worthy of the win. They really were. Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, Curry against Clonakul, no more than what Drumcliff, Ross's Point done. They flexed their muscles. They went at it from the get-go. I was talking to a couple of guys that was at it, and they just blitzed them in the first 10, 15 minutes, and it was game over. And no more than anything else, I had mentioned that the step up from junior to intermediate, although on paper it mightn't seem that it's a huge amount, Clonakul, to compete at intermediate level, need everybody playing for them that is able to be playing, and they've lost a couple of players. And Curry are worthy favourites at the moment.
Yeah, someone was saying to me today they should probably be in senior. Curry.
If they were in senior, they'd probably be getting to the knockout stages also, just with the panel of players they have at the moment. Like they have Ed O'Marin there, who is, he kicked another 7 points at the weekend at his ease, and I think he came off with 15 or 20 minutes to go. They've Alan Riley, who's an excellent footballer, didn't play for Sligo this year. Disappointed not to see him playing, because I think he should be on that Sligo team, and Sligo aren't in a position at the moment to be not having him on the team, in my opinion. And then they have a couple of forwards throughout there, young Gallagher, young O'Donoghue. They're a well-oiled machine. And Jimmy Langan has gone in there from Malash Gales, and he's managing them, and he seems to be getting a good gig out of the players at the moment. And at the moment, they're sitting pretty at a semi-final, and it's probably their championship to lose at the moment.
So Curry, just to do the fixtures, Ballymote play Castleconnor. That's at the GAA Centre of Excellence. That's on Friday night at 7:30, and then Sunday it's Giva versus Curry out in Curran Park in Ballymote. That's at 2:00. So you're hoping that Curry will go, look at just how
rest all their players. Rest all their players.
You have to put you down, lads. Take a break.
100%. And they're bound to find 15 fellas and Howleys there that'll travel over to Ballymote on Sunday afternoon.
We'll give Adrian Marin we'll give a voucher for the sweat recovery.
And look at for that one for Giva against Curry. Hopefully Giva get a strong 15 on the field. I hope they're not picking up any injuries after the weekend, because they can't afford to pick up any injuries. And on the flip side of that, I hope the Curry are resting a couple of players and getting ready for a semi-final in a couple of weeks. In the other game then, which is on Friday night in Scarden, Ballymote and Castleconnor, I expect this to be
ding dong,
a serious battle.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, because they're all level on points. Yeah, so that's
level on points, and I rate Castleconnor, and based on a couple of players they have, and obviously their main man, who I keep harping on about, Sean Carbine, and anybody that hasn't seen this guy playing football, get to Scarden on Friday night, and let's see this guy playing, because when you see this guy playing in the flesh, you're like, oh my God, he is an exceptional footballer. Ballymote will probably have Jack Lavin marking him, who is the county centre half back, and that would be a battle for the ages, I'd imagine. Yeah. Now, on paper, Ballymote should be winning this, but again, it is a potential banana skin. And I would say that I wouldn't rule out a draw on it or a few points either way, to be totally honest, which would open up that group into what's going to happen in the last round of games. Well, when Giva
beat Curry, who arrested the lads from Howleys versus Giva.
And then you have Giva versus Castleconnor in the last group game. Then.
Yes, that's the last game.
It'll be very interesting to see. And then you're going into group two then.
Yeah, so Bunanadden 215, St. Farnan 17 points, St. Pat's 215, Colliery St. Joseph's, that was their second game out, and they 319, they won that one quite handily. The group there is Bunanadden on 6, so they're obviously into the semis. Colliery, Farnans and Enniscrone on 2, and St. Pat's have no points so far. Again, it's the exact same as the top table there. We have one semi-finalist and then a battle there. It's anyone's second and third really at the moment.
And the Bunnies are sitting pretty in the semi-final there, and mentioned that they have big players throughout the field, and they have Luke Marin there, who's a sharpshooter. He was on Team of the Year there in Ireland a few years ago when he was playing at minor level, and he's brought his form forward. They have big men catching ball. Aidan Rooney has them well drilled, and they got across Farnans the last evening, and again, no more than anything else, they're going to be looking at a few weeks' time, semi-final, looking to win that. In the other game, Colliery against St. Pat's, this game, I think by all accounts, Colliery had the game done and dusted. I think there were 12 or 13 points up. St. Pat's had a man sent off early in the game, and all of a sudden Pats blitzed them in 7 or 8 minutes and kicked 2-3 or 2-4 without reply, and brought the scores back to level. Now Colliery found another gear, kicked on and got the win. Again, I was expecting Colry to win it comfortably. They won it by that amount in the end, but it wasn't as comfortable as it probably should have been. They're finding their feet at intermediate level after playing Division 3 league football. That game will bring them on in leaps and bounds.
They have a couple of lads to come back as well.
They have a couple of lads.
Conor Griffin, is it?
Yeah, Conor Griffin should be back.
Gil
yeah.
Martin, is there another man? No, I might be getting the name wrong.
But I know that Gavin Lynch played the last day, who didn't play in the first game, and I think he kicked 2-4, 2-5 the last evening. Right good footballer. And they're a team that's going to take a good bit of beating in championship level. They really are, because they only lost to Budnaden on the first night by 2 points, 17 points to 15. And again, games bring you on at this level. So that game, the last night, they got tested in Kent Park, but they came out the right way. They're playing St. Farnans this weekend. You're going to go through the fixtures there.
Yeah, so Colley versus St. Farnans. That's Saturday at 6:30 out in Clunacool. And Sunday then it's St. Pat's versus Enniscrone, and that's in St. Brendan's GAA Park, and that's 5 o'clock on Sunday. So Colley versus Farnans.
Yeah, look, it should be on paper comfortable win for Colley St. Joseph's.
Right.
Because
even though they're level on points.
It's just because Farnans have 3 played, they're after coming on the...
Oh, sorry, of course, yeah.
Yeah, right, they're on the back of 2 losses at the moment. And then I would just be thinking the Colley just have too much. Farnans' panel has probably been stretched that little bit as well. They wouldn't have huge numbers out there in Dromore West that are playing at the moment. But again, look at it'll be a bit of a battle, and it'll be a good battle for Colley St. Joseph's if they want to be competing with the other boys in the quarter-final stage come championship time at that. In the other game, St. Pat's against Enniscrone. Local derby out in the west of Sligo. Again, that group is all set up for the west, apart from the true Castleconnor into Group 1 just for the
okay. Mileage up.
Yeah, but St. Pat's, they were given a right rattle on Saturday evening against Colley. They gave it a right rattle, they really did. And I was looking at Pierce Cairns there, who seems to be around for a long time. He clipped in with 6 or 7 points, and fair play to him, and he's putting the shoulder to the wheel for them. But I just think that Enniscrone, they might probably have a little bit too much for them on Sunday afternoon. Like it's one of these games that if Enniscrone were to lose, you're not overly surprised, if you know what I mean. If it was a draw, you're like, oh, well, then they're 2 even enough teams. Whereas if Enniscrone win it, it puts them right into the mix for getting into a quarter-final.
Yes.
Coming into the last group games. So it's interesting to see on that.
As I said, this is my, as I keep saying, I'm like the child with the new toy, like kind of seeing all these different games. And there's a real excitement now building. And just, you mentioned Sligo there, like just for development now, and I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but like, could you give me 2 or 3 players that you've seen so far in the championship that haven't been in the squad that you'd be suggesting they're tipping on the door?
Well, I would, and I've mentioned them here before, and there's 2 guys from Drumcliff Ross's Point, definitely Eamon O'Mahony and Eamon Keane, that I think could make the step up to inter-county senior level straight away, because they're just 2-man mountains, and they have the right physique, and they seem to have the right temperament, and they're right good footballers also. I'd also love to see Alan Riley back in the Sligo GAA jersey. I know that he's been thereabouts over the last years. Anytime he's on the panel, he seems to play, and then for whatever reason he's not in the squad the next day, and then I think this year he stepped aside himself. So I would love to see him back into the mix, And apart from that, there's probably a couple of guys there that that just not coming to mind, but that could probably make the step up. And it's Fola. Could you see Fola playing for Sligo?
Yeah.
The Westmeath guy. Why not?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so there could be a few surprises.
Like Sligo don't have the luxury of saying, okay, well, and we don't need these guys. Where we're at the moment, and with Sligo Inter-County, just try anything, to get us back.
Well, I mean, if there's we've seen it with Drumcliff, the massive panel obviously breeds more and more competition. So
turn nobody away.
Yeah, no. You might tag out again yourself. So just quickly onto the Junior A. Just quickly tell you the Group 1 results. St. Michael's 19 points, Calera Strandhill 4-9, and St. Mary's 6-16. Turlestrand 1-11, and that leaves Group 1 table. St. Mary's on 4, Owenmore Gales on 4, and Owenmore again, I know they've only played twice, but they would be by any account I'm hearing, they're going to be the favourites. Calera on 2 and St. Michael's on 2, and then Turlestrand have yet to get any points in that group. And then the fixtures this weekend, Turlestrand play Calera, and that's on Saturday in Connolly Park at 6:30, and on Sunday then St. Mary's play Owenmore Gales in the Sligo GAA Centre of Excellence out in Scarden, and that's at 5 o'clock on Sunday. So again, just briefly,
I suppose straight off it there, Calera Strandhill second team beating St. Michael's first team is a shock.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't be happening, to be totally honest. That's St. Michael's gone out of the championship now already, and they should have been looking to bring it in and getting another win on the board. But Colera Strandhill, Oisin O'Neill, who shot the lights out the week before. I think he kicked 1-9 again. So, wow. But I had asked the question, would he be involved with Colera Strandhill first team? But I think it's Connacht Rugby as his first love, and he's only playing this as a side gig. But look, that's a great win for Colera Strandhill, to be honest. And then with St. Mary's beating Tour de Strand, St. Mary's have a very strong junior team. They have lots of guys that are involved with their senior team. Yeah. And on Saturday even, they didn't lose any guys, and it could have been a game that Mark Brady might have thrown in a couple of guys, and you would have lost him then for the junior, you know what I mean? But he didn't, and that result, Tour de Strand are missing a good few players. Fair play to them for fulfilling the fixture, because there was a lot of guys away at the weekend. And then with the fixtures this weekend, Tour de Strand against Colera Strandhill. With the way that Colera are, to be honest, they'll probably beat Tour de Strand there and give themselves a fighting chance of, just being a strong second team, if you know what I mean.
Well, they played in the Junior B final.
Yeah, they did. They won that Junior B last year, But when you have a strong second team, it can only be good for your first team, And then with St. Mary's and Omar Gales, as we said, are rightly favourites for the Junior Championship. They have a very good, strong panel. They're Division 1 league next year, which is Senior League, which is a huge step up from Junior Championship. But again, they probably should be winning. They probably shouldn't be in Junior Championship. Let's be real about things here. But that's where they find themselves. And they're not going to have it easy in Scarden against St. Mary's on Sunday even. They're definitely not. Like, St. Mary's have no senior match this weekend. So any of the guys that are on the periphery of the senior panel,
get a run
21, 22, them kind of numbers, put yourself in the shop window for Mark Brennan to see you. And put your best foot forward.
You're up against, as you said, a good team. Like
you are, of course,
going all out. That's not a good game.
So it'll be interesting to see how that game
even
goes.
Just watching all this, and again, clearly you know a million times more than I do. But there's loads of great games in any of the levels. If you go, I'd like to go see a game of football.
I know.
And the weekend pass is, I'll probably get this wrong now. Is it 15 or 20?
15
bits. So good at all the games that weekend.
Yeah.
That's mental if you love your GAA. So, and there's plenty of games depending where you're living. There's plenty of games in all sides of the county. You know what I mean? So wherever you live, there's one near you. The Group 2 then, St. Malosh Gales 213, Eastern Harps 210, Shamrock Gales 12, Drumcliff Ross's Point 19. So that was obviously a draw. So that table then, Malosh Gales and St. John's are on 4 points apiece, Eastern Harps on 2, and Shamrock Gales and Drumcliff on a point apiece each. So again, all tight enough again. I mean, look at Malosh and John's at tops. I mean, John's potentially people's fancies, but again, like Bart Foley and the team there have only come in this year. I'd say after where they've been the last few years, it's kind of like a 2-year project nearly, I'd say. So it'd be interesting to see where they finish in this.
And I think the information that we have is that it's the top 2 in each group that goes to the semi-finals. So you don't have the luxury of finishing third in the group and getting into a quarter-final. So in order for St. John's to be getting into the top 2, they're going to have to beat Malosh Gales on Saturday evening.
At 5 o'clock out in Shamrock Gales.
Again, it's probably going to be no easy task. St. John's bet Drumcliff on their last outing by a point, and we had mentioned that there was breaches galore left, right and centre.
And that went their way maybe,
but this is, you take your eye off the ball against a so-called second team. Like, this is St. Malosh Gales' second team when it's your first team, no more than what happened with St. Michael's and Colera Strandhill last weekend. That result shouldn't be happening, but when it comes to this level, it can happen.
Well, it can happen because, as you said, there's probably a bunch of lads, even if there's 20 on that panel, there might be 5 or 6 of them burst in the gut to go, I want to get up on that top.
Yeah, well, I know that Owen McHugh, who's coming back from injury, he played for St. Malosh's second team at the weekend. So when you have the likes of that caliber of player playing, it makes the St. Malosh Gales second team an awful lot stronger.
Do
you know what I mean? And I'm sure there's a few others that are there that are probably knocking on the door of James Clancy saying, well, we got bet by Drumcliff by this. I'm playing this well for the second team. Why don't I get a chance for the first team? Yeah. And no better place than to do it because St. Malosh Gales, again, have no first team game this weekend. So they're playing St. John's, and it's not going to be an easy task for St. John's. On the flip side of that, Eastern Harps against Drumcliff Ross's Point. Again, Drumcliff Ross's Point, again, have no first team game this weekend, even though the game is on Friday night. Or their first team are playing, but
they can rest, lads, let's call it.
You know what I mean? Eastern Harps, they had a tough time in the league with their second team. It was in Division 2 because they got promoted from Division 3 last year, and they ended up not playing in a couple of games. So they're doing very well to get a team out for this championship, and fair play to them for doing it. But I expect Drumcliff to beat them on Friday night.
Okay, so that's Friday night, Eastern Harp versus Drumcliff out in Kilcoyne Park in Tubbercurry at 8 o'clock. And then Saturday evening, 5 o'clock, out in Shamrock Gales Park is St. Melosh Gales and St. John's. So again, if like we could stay here talking all night, but the Junior B and Junior C, we've even done a little review of all of the stuff there on our social media for people who want to check in on that. And don't forget all the fixtures, and hopefully we have everything right here. If we've double checked them all, we think we're okay. But SligoGAA.ie, of course, for your tickets, for your matches, for all your details, and SligoGATV.ie for this weekend's live games. So it's all bubbling up nicely, and I think this weekend now is really going to start giving us the right picture for that last weekend.
It probably will, and like you have guys there that are, they're really showing up and they're really playing well, and they're putting themselves forward as if saying, like, a few weeks ago, Drumcliff, Ross's Point, they're the kind of close men. Like you touch back to last year against Colara in the semi-final in Kent Park. They missed a couple of goal chances in the first half, which Colara went down the field and ended up scoring then. So they weren't that far away. Colara then went to the final and brought Shamrock Gales to a replay. Probably should have won the game the first day, missing a penalty and stuff like that. So Drumcliff are probably going to be looking at, okay, we iron out them for creases. We're now in a semi-final. We're back where we were last year, and let's fix a few things. On the flip side of that, Shamrock Gales, who people have been saying, okay, they're not where they were last year. They're, they seem to have come back to the pack. They went out, and the bookies' favourites over the weekend, at the start of the weekend, was St. Mary's, and they went out and more or less, won comfortably against them. That puts them right back in the mix. So, and over the next few weeks, it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and see where things end up.
So we'll see. And again, I get to see another. I haven't seen Turtle Strand this year yet, so I get to see them now on Saturday evening when we're doing the commentary, or when I'm doing the commentary. And again, if people are watching at home, like, don't forget we are on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. So wherever you tune in or listen, we'd love you to give us a follow, a like, a comment. These things all help with the following and the numbers up there, because this is a hobby, as we said, and we do have to give a shout out to our segment sponsors, Sherlock's Butchers and Ballysadare, who give us a protein pack each week, and that's for the Player of the Week. Our panel of judges, I think we'll come up with a couple of names for that. Well, we'll go to the top scorer first, because I think that's a shoe-in. Am I right in saying that? Yeah. So this is with Sweat Happens Reset and Recovery Studio out in Tubbercurry there. And again, check out our social media, because we showed you all their ins and outs with opening hours and all the services they do. But so the top scorer this week in all the championships, if we ever match done right, we think
we have, for the information that we have.
Anyway, please correct us if we're wrong. Fola, Ayurindi from Cooley or Strandhill. So he'll be getting out to the lovely recovery session out there in Tubbercurry and Sweat Happens, and then the panel of judges, we narrowed it down to two, I believe. Yeah. Now, we're not going to, like, Fola obviously could be in there, but we said, well, you can't be giving the same person two votes. So you either get one or the other now. So, he could well have won that, but we're going to say also then, who is the other? Okay, so the guy that we mentioned was Adam Ryan from Drumcliff Ross's Point, who had a super outing, but it was a game that they won comfortably. Yeah. And the other guy then that was in the mix was Kieran Kenny. They call him KK out there in the Shamrock Gales club, who wing back for Shamrock Gales, who, he set a marker down straight away at the start of the game with outside of a left 2-pointer from way downtown, which, they didn't look back after that. And he had a superb outing the very first night against Eastern Harps. You were really impressed with him. And, he was very good again against Turtle Strand. So he's a guy that's, he's really, really strong at the moment. And at the end of it, we decided to go with Kieran Kenny. Yeah, for the Player of the Week for this week, which is sponsored by Sherlock's Butchers out there in Ballysadare. Kieran will get himself a lovely protein pack, a meat pack, which Sherlock's do. You can pre-order them. They're everything you need if you're an athlete, need to know that protein. So it's 20 quid for this meat pack, and we'll get in touch with Kieran to make sure he gets fueled up for the week ahead. Well, Kieran or Kearnsey, that's 45 minutes of chatting done there. So I think we've covered everything there. Hopefully, and we'll be back next week again. As I said, please give us a follow and a share and a like. Tell people about us. And remember, we're on all the different platforms out there. So until next week, we'll see you all again.